Hi guys, Rob here. Now before we begin, I am truly gutted. Look what I've just done to my Storm watch. I was putting it on in the kitchen for some reason and I dropped it and it broke on the tiles and the second hand has come off and yeah, look at that. The screen is shattered. I'm not sure why I'm still putting it on, but anyway, I'm truly gutted because this came with me all the way through the Susie gigs last year and I got it with my girlfriend as well, which is, fond memories of a little trip we took where we visited this like secondhand vintage place or thrift store, which was massive, full of all sorts of stuff. Yeah, and I bought it there and it's now broken. So if you've got one like this and you want to get rid of it, leave a message in the comments below and contact me and maybe we can sort something out. Or if you know where I could get this fixed or what the deal is with watches and stuff, I don't usually break them, but anyway, so that's a bummer to start with. Anyway, moving on, more positive thing, what we're talking about today. So a couple of months ago, I did a tribute to Cedric Sharpley's drumming on the Gary Numan album, The Pleasure Principle, which was like the first album, proper album. I think I bought Jeff Love and his orchestra doing superhero themes, I think, on the Music for Pleasure label. I'm sure I bought that. And I had like a teddy on the front with a Superman costume doing this sort of thing, flying, which was kind of funny. Anyway, so I thought, seeing we've just done this tribute to Cedric, which I hope you guys have checked out, called the Mars Rover. There's a clip on all about that, which I'll tag below, and you can click and see it if you haven't seen it already, and you could maybe donate some money to the Cedric Sharpley drumming bursary, which would be good. And we had Chris Payne's involved in that, and Robert Dean, and Andy Coughlin, ex-Gary Numan band members, and they've all done things in their own right as well, so that's all great. And we all got together and we did this little tribute. So yeah, keeping in line with that, I said I was going to do a little chat about the album that followed The Pleasure Principle, and this album was Telekon, which came out in 1980. Now my original copy is in there somewhere, and I wanted to get this done fairly quickly because I'm out again shortly, back to the studio, and then gigging tonight, so I haven't got a lot of time to get all these things sorted as ever. But I had an original copy bought from the Caution Book and Record Shop back in 1980, and I had the sticker on it saying there was a single inside, a 7-inch single, which I think was a cover of On Broadway, and on the B-side was Remember I Was Vapor, which was both live versions from the Living Ornaments tour. And I think on some of those albums, there was a poster as well. My voice keeps going funny. I think there was a poster as well, but I'd never got the poster, gutted. Anyway, but so what I could find in that pile very quickly was this sort of reissue that came out a few years ago, which in true Rob style, I've managed to break both ends of it. Anyway, that's what's on this. It's two versions of Telekon with the singles We Are Glass and I Die You Die added in, and the Wembley Arena gig, which was also a video and now a DVD, Living Ornaments 1981 live concert. But anyway, we're only talking about the actual album Telekon, which in this version comes in two, which is fairly cool. And you've got side one here on this album. And for those people who know the album, they'll go, there's We Are Glass. That wasn't on the original, but that was the point of this special edition, 180 gram posh vinyl, was to add the singles on as well as a sort of, and this would be side two. I love that image, which has side two as normal, but with I Die You Die added as well. So yeah, this could have been the possible running order if it had gone that way back in 1980. But of course it didn't go that way, and it's still good anyway, regardless. But let's crack on with what we're talking about. So side one, Boom, which is on this album, is going to be like this. Starts with a track called This Wreckage, which was also a single. And there's a great video of him playing in a white jumpsuit, because obviously the jumpsuit he was wearing most of the time on this was a black one with the red belts, and on this top of the pops he's got white with the red belts, and it looks cool. And he's a bit more confident in these videos. He's looking sort of more in control of what's going on with his looks and stuff to camera, and his hand over the microphone, his arm over the microphone. He's a bit more kind of, I'm getting used to stardom type thing. But Cedric's drumming, throughout all this album, he is managing to keep up that acoustic drums against electronic drums acoustic drums and electric bass against all the electronics, and also electric guitar's been added back in again. Gary's playing electric guitar on this as well, so it brings that punk element back that was a bit like on Tube by Army and also the album Replicas, bringing that back. Whereas Pleasure Principle, that apart from the electric bass, there was no electric guitar or acoustic guitar or any guitar on it at all. That was the point. So this actually starts, this wreckage starts with Cedric playing some amazing fills on his Tama concert tom kit, because he loved those concert toms. I think the floor toms were normal floor toms, you know, double-headed, but all the sort of 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, they were all concert toms. And when you hear the initial impact of the stick on the head when he plays this, bra, 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 ba-dum, dum, ba-da, and it kicks in, you know, the mic picks up that resonance and that zero kind of, the impact rather than zero resonance, you know, there's no sort of hang on to that note. It's very clear, very clean, like reggae kind of sound. And you get those tom fills, and they come in, you know, 3 or 4 times throughout the track whenever there's the little break in between and the keyboard's doing a ding, 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 and then he comes in with that fill. And they're slightly different each time, plenty of flams going on, you know, but they're open, they're kind of Roger Taylor-ish, maybe, you know, the way they're so open, or even Ringo-fied. There's no sort of clever stickery going on, though I'm sure he could do it. That wasn't the point. You know, if you're making a big open statement on the toms like that, there's no point, you know, going in with loads of drags and buzzes and things. You know, you could, but it just takes away the impact. And this ties in with something from last week's video of playing for the music and not overplaying. And actually I posted a video yesterday of me tracking a new song, and it's so straight ahead. I think I call it the Thou Shall Not Pass take. That, you know, I could have played all sorts of clever fills because the tempo was good, so I could have laid in, and I did a first take like that just to blow it all out, so I could go, what can I do on this? Wow, loads of things. And I listened to it a few times and thought, right, this is what it needs. So go and check out that video clip that I posted yesterday, because that sort of explains sort of mentality when you're there, because he probably thought he could have gone, he could have done all those kind of things, but he went with the brum, 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 ba-dum, dum, ba. Those kind of things, much more musical and iconic. And when the Tele Tour, which was what the tour was called for this album, you know, that was the first tune. So you can imagine being, you know, whether in Newcastle, you know, or Bristol, or in the Netherlands, or in Canada, or in America, wherever you heard and saw Gary play this, or the Philippines, wherever else he went, you know, over there, or Japan, waiting for that must have been amazing when that synth kicked in, you know, and it was getting the doom, 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 bloop, 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 ga, ga, ba-da. Lovely. And I love the way he resolved some of them on the snare drum as well, rather than just another lower tom. Very cool. And his drumming in this is great. You know, he holds the groove, big fat sound, you know, always playing the changes, so to speak, always playing for the song, always marking in the right places where things should be, and not playing where he doesn't need to. You know, very, very classy drumming. As I say, that became a single as well, which didn't chart that well. I think there's other songs like Remind Me to Smile on this record that could have been a better single. But yeah, such a great opener, strong, keeping that vibe from the Pleasure Principle of grinding through the music, just keeping going, you know, keeping that evil, dark, sinister groove going through some of these, you know, quite dark and sinister songs. The second track is one of my favorites. This is called The Air Crash Bureau. And drumming wise, it's kind of a funky boom boom ps boom get boom boom ps boom get boom boom gets, which you take out of context of what's going on in the music, which is synths, you know, and multi-layered synth parts, and you played it on its own. It almost could be like yacht rock or something, you know. It could be like a Doobie Brothers kind of groove. And Paul Gardner as well, you know, such a funky bass player. I mean, not a slap bass player, but the way he felt the groove, he obviously understood a bit of funk and dance playing, and he obviously loved punk and rock playing, and he's had a gentle fusion of the two. You know, it was never over the top. It was never like chuck a little slap in there and like, oh, get away with that. None of that. Just done very tastefully. And that groove sits through the song when it comes in. A lot of nothing in the song for him to play on. The verses, there's no drums. it comes in for like the sort of B section, if you like, or the bridge, whatever you want to call that section. And then it drops out again, then comes back in again for the second verse to give the second verse a bit of a push. And we've got the Roland drum machine in there as well, which he had to work with a lot at this point because Gary was using it in the studio a lot, and it was going on the tracks. And so that meant he had to play with that machine live, which I think Chris Payne said he was in control of, because sometimes you hear live versions and the tempo control was like on a rotating sort of knob thing. And he said sometimes he'd start it and it was too fast and you can hear it go ding 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 ding, which, you know, if I hadn't told me or if I hadn't seen it on one of those Stephen Roper clips, I wouldn't have known, because I thought it was just a cool effect, you know, slowing it down. But anyway, and he has to play against this in the Air Crash Bureau. And I'm thinking, you know, in the studio, I wonder if he had a headphone mix that was just, you know, him counting out the bars so he knew when he was coming in and out, and just concentrating on playing with the machine, and maybe someone cueing him in the room to say, you'll be back in here and all that. I don't know. Or whether he had and unfortunately, Cedric's not with us anymore, so we won't find out. But, you know, whether he had the drum machine and a little mix of the track as well, who knows? Interesting, because I've done similar things where I have to play with a loop and counted the bars and thought, I'll play the tune, but you don't need to play me the rest of the track. I can just count the bars and play what I need to play with just the loop, so I can really tie into that. So, and I've got to say that these B sections or bridge sections where the drums and the bass are coming in and the synths are in there, it's so, dare I say, romantic what the synths are playing. And the second time round it comes in and there's this lovely, glorious, almost classical piano going over the top that I just listen to it actually, and it always sends shivers down my spine and the hairs on my neck come up and a bit teary. It's amazing, very powerful. And it's got Simple Minds giving hand claps at the end. Dum, 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 bam, bam. They're doing this because apparently they were in the studio next door, and Simple Minds, even though they went on to be absolutely massive after Gary, they supported him for the Telly tour, so they were a support, so that's kind of cool. And I remember when I worked with them, I spoke to Charlie Burchill, the guitarist, about it. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. Telekon, which is the title track of the album, uses like a disco to get them, and goes on to a tom for some accents on forehand and stuff. A bit like in Conversation on The Pleasure Principle, but it's totally linear. You know, he's playing the offbeat hi-hat, which again is kind of a disco thing. So Cedric, like, you know, spoke about Ringo before, you know, listening to other styles of music, but bringing it into that band. And we mentioned this with loads of different drummers, because that's what we're good at doing. And, anyway, I won't go into that. I could go on tangents all the time on this, but he's playing that really good disco pattern and it keeps it going. And I've always thought this song stands out, though I do like it, but it doesn't seem to, in my mind, it's never hung together with the rest of the track somehow. I don't know why. As I say, I'm not saying it's a bad track. It just doesn't, it's never really sat with me that well. But that's a feature of that, you know, and again, the stark remoteness of how he plays that pattern. And again, take it out of that context and put it in something like, you know, on a Chic song, it's a funk groove. But, you know, with Gary, with all that dark, the sounds and the voice, the electronic, robotic voice that he's got, it turns it into something completely different. And I love that mishmash of stuff, as you guys know that watch my channel. I love people taking loads of different styles, throwing them together and throwing them back out again as something that they've created. So that's cool. Remind Me to Smile, I think should have been a single, but that's a great tune, doing the classic 80s, because this album was 1980. So he's doing the classic, you know, two-handed 16th notes on the hi-hat, with a few open hats here and there, and da-da-da-da, boom. Really sort of krautrock, really bold, open playing in that style, which I use a lot when I have to play in that sort of robotic style, you know. Plenty of da-da-da-da fills and boom, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, that kind of thing, broken fills, almost like it's somebody playing it on a drum machine. That's the point, and it's hard to do, and being consistent on those hats without giving it a little funky little thing. On this, he's playing it very straight, very clean, very to the point, and very heavy. Sounds really good. And yeah, Remind Me to Smile is just one of the best choruses ever, with that little old time bar in there as well. It's really cool. Sleep by Windows, which would normally end the side of the first album, but on this one we've got one more to go. That's got a boom boom dum boom boom ka boom 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 ka. So it's almost like Ringo boom boom get boom boom ka boom boom, that kind of vibe, but with beat 2 missing on the snare, boom 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 ka, and it resolves on beat 4. Very cool. There's no hi-hat as far as I can tell. So again, quite machine-like again, and quite rockish with the boom, 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 cat, and just staying on that. And every now and again, ba, ba, ba. And no cymbals, as I recall, very dry. You know, if I'm wrong on that, you know, please leave something in the comments. But as I remember, there's no hats on this at all. And everyone talks about Peter Gabriel. And I suppose this is about the same time, to be fair. So I don't want to start opening a can of worms. But everyone's saying that, and I love this album, you know, with Intruder, No Self-Control. I think it's Peter Gabriel 3. He uses no hats on it because he had heard that Kate Bush had done a similar thing. And I think Gary, I don't know whether he was aware of that or not, but either way, both albums I sort of heard at the same time. Well, I think I heard Peter Gabriel 3 after Telekon. Yeah, a couple of years after. So for me, that will always be my first album I heard with a track with no hats or cymbals. So yeah, great playing on that, lovely and consistent, perfect for that vibe that's needed for that song. And this one finishes with the single We Are Glass, which was a top 5 single, I believe. Great video, great song, driving all the way through. Again, good fills, solid hi-hat, you know, like a gate on the snare drum. This was starting to be used a lot on this album, which wasn't so much on the Pleasure Principle. That's a very clean drum sound. On this album, they're using, you know, more gates and, you know, more compression on the drums, I think, and maybe putting it through an effect or two. I'm not sure what, but it gives the, if you listen to the drums on We Are Glass, it's definitely got, not a phaser at all, but it's got something on the drum part, which makes it sort of feel like it's moving around. It's really interesting, you know, it's solid, it's big, it's in your face. It's certainly not a weak drum sound, and it's a fat drum part, but there's something about the effects of it which makes it sound like it's shimmering almost. Give it a listen, and if you know, please leave a comment down below. Side 2, so on this album looks like this. It's the one where he's got the Hoover appliance here. Starts with a track called I'm an Agent, which again could have been a single. Love that. 80s, 16s on the hats. Digga digga push, you know, nice big fat fills again, just what's needed. And I think when he's playing the hats, he's not playing on the top, he's playing the shaft of the stick on the side, so you've got that really solid chicka 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 chicka, which really keeps the consistency of the groove going. And again, on these sort of songs, you don't need sort of to come down dynamically and come up. Once you're in, and you've got to drive that song forward. And we know Cedric had dynamics in spades, but on this album, it's almost like rock this time. Pleasure Principle was a bit more arty. This is more like, this is what modern 80s rock synth drumming sounds like when it's played, not programmed, but played. And he kind of invented that, you know, for me. Anyway, he certainly invented that. I Dream of Wires. It was the first time that I'd heard the 3-stroke rough, dum da da dum da da dum da 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 bosh, which is his fill that he enters the song with. And I'd only started to learn a 3-stroke rough about that point, and I think I've mentioned this before. So that was a big influence on me, because when my dad got home from work, and of course, for people that know, my dad was a drum teacher, and he taught me how to play. And I broke my watch. I said, Dad, is this that rudiment? And he said, yeah, that's it. Yeah. So for one song, he was giving a thumbs up to Gary Numan because he wasn't a massive fan. But he did think Cedric's drumming was tasty. He always said that, but he just didn't like the music. So to be fair to Dad, that's true. And I Dream of Wires, yeah, once it's in, it's kind of a boom, gat, boom, boom, gat. It's a funky thing, you know, again, a good holding groove that keeps going all the way through. And we get a few more da-da, 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 boom. He varies up his fills a little bit, again, with that sort of krautrock, you know, very straight ahead, solid playing. I remember I Was Vapor is mostly drum machine, but he comes in again with those with those lovely concert toms that just sing so beautifully. Not one of my favourite songs on the album, has to be said, but I love to hear Ced go around in really broken fills and hitting floor tom or one of his last concert toms and floor tom together. It's like a massive sound, just beautiful, really tasty. So drum's worth checking that out as a, you know, as a soundscape to be aware of toms that can sound that way, you know, really nice. No drumming at all on the track 10, Please Push No More. It's a ballad, lovely song. And then it ends with, side 2 ends with the Joy Circuit, though this one, you get an extra one. His drumming on the Joy Circuit is good. Again, it's that 80s kind of groove going through it. And for me, Solid. I can't say much more than I've said already on the others, but I love his fills. He does doom, da-doom, da-doom, ka-doom, ka-doom, really tasty fills on the outro. And he takes it from full time on the outro when it comes in for I don't know how many bars, 16 bars or something, and then he goes to halftime, boom, 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 tshka, boom, 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 tshka, boom, ksh. And that's nice. And then he brings it back up again with a fat flam, little arrangement things like that. When I was listening to it at 10 years of age, must have sunk in because I would have heard it with other bands after that, obviously, but when you're that young and impressionable, that would have stuck with me the way, he stopped this thing to go halftime to go back again. Oh, this is amazing. Sounds a little bit like the Sleep by Windows groove we spoke about, which is more broken. You can imagine a 10-year-old sort of trying to piece these things together. Is that a rule? Is that okay? Is it breaking the rules? Really exciting. And then it ends with I Die, You Die, which was the single after, I think it was after We Are Glass, with a great video with a red streak in his hair. Not Cedric, but Gary. And he just looks so great at this period of time. So confident and great song. His drumming again, just really solid, really solid. What can I say that I have said already? All of these tracks are just tough, as they say, tough tracks. He's not messing about. He's playing that wonderful Tama kit that I know Dave Twig has got now in the Liquid Engineers. He's playing that kit and keeping it safe for all us fans and stuff. He's out there using it, playing some of those tunes on it, I should imagine. And that Tama kit, Cedric's making it sing, the snare is tight, the toms sing beautifully, the impact of them, the dryness, it's just really cool. And I think when I step back and look at the album as not just a period piece, but just as from a production point of view, and I've only started thinking about that, talking about it today, the drums just, it's like a rock sound, like you would hear later on, I don't know, not Bon Jovi, but on some other sort of rock songs. But the way he's playing the parts and stuff comes from the era before, like the 70s, if you know what I mean. Really hard to describe. There's like a disco, that's like a John Bonham element in there. There's like Can and as I say, that sort of krautrock sort of element in there as well. Maybe a bit Pink Floydy in there as well in the drums. I'm not on about the music, I'm on about the drumming. And very clever how he's sort of thrown all these ideas together and sort of popped them out into Gary's music without making it sound like he's sort of tipping his hat to any of those things unless we really study it. Half of me loves studying music, but half of me just wants to enjoy it. But every now and again, we have to meet in the middle and sort of go, okay, let's just talk about this side for a bit. Let's just talk about this side. So that's what this was about. And I've got to say that snare sound, now I think about it, more so than any Gary Numan album, this sort of 14 by 8 inch deep DW I've got now that I keep talking about, they call it the Hitmaker. There's not been that many hits made on it, but there's a Grammy album made on it, Grammy winning, and a Grammy nominated album. Use this snare on my tracks. Excuse me. But that snare sound must have stuck with me because that big fat sound is something that I really like. And the nice thing about the snare I've got, it could be tuned up or it could be tuned down. But on this, it's sort of in a mid-range tuning that's like a doo, but it just sounds almost electronic. And maybe that's what he was going for as well, slightly electronic, but still keeping it live. Because the Pleasure Principle kit is very much a live acoustic kit. It sounds great on cars and all that, but a year later, they'd obviously thought, right, let's make this a lot darker. So once again, thanks again, Cedric. Genius, great drummer. I'm so proud to have been involved with the other chaps and made the Mars Rover track. I hope you've enjoyed this clip. It's quite long, but a lot to go through. And again, if we could go deeper, it would be great. And I can't play but parts of the track, though it's here, I'd love to, but I think it'd probably get taken down because I'm using Gary's music, and rightly so. So any questions, let me know. Leave them in the comments below. If you've got comments and memories of the Teletour or the album and Cedric, please leave them below as well, because the music community loves to share stories and all this stuff, and it's always good to keep the brethren together. So nearly half an hour, so I will wrap it up there. Thanks a lot if you've enjoyed it. Please like, subscribe, and as I say, leave some comments. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Happy music, happy drumming, happy life, and I'll speak to you soon.